Do you ever yearn?
There's a total disconnect now between the ruling group and the masses.
I hate psychology.
Clear out.
They're the same worm-like characters.
Analysts,
Fuck you with your stupid arguments.
they should not bother us.
Democracy. All of this just works.
Vote for the generations who are coming.
Fully dynamic game engine.
A millennial video essayist.
Always support strength
Constant craving.
and identity.
They haven't yearned. They are a disease of our time.
Clear them out. You're voting for what your grandfather and father fought for.
I sit and yearn.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Longhouse. And hopefully, unlike last time, my mic is still holding up. I'm giving it one more chance. If it fails me this week, I'm going to have to buy a new one. This is The Longhouse, the weekly show for the sensible centrist. I hope you're doing quite well this Thursday evening. It's about 1 week until the election in America, which means that we have to ride the slop train just a little bit more. We'll try to balance it out with some local news or some European perspectives as usual. And then hopefully by, well, maybe not next week, but the week after that, we'll be back to our, Euro flag waving normal selves. Ludwig Path, how are you doing?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing fine. Good to be back. Your microphone sounds good. So
Very
settling into a nice autumn atmosphere here. We're on winter time now, or daylight saving, I guess it's called in the US of A. So
Yeah, it's always nice when we hit that. It's getting nice and dark outside whenever I leave work. And today actually is Halloween, or All Saints Day or whatever it's called, which isn't a big deal in Norway as far as I'm aware. But I have a neighbor who moved in last year, who apparently I didn't know, but I learned today really likes Halloween. Likes showing it off to everyone in the neighborhood.
I mean,
So-
how is your house located? Do you get kids on your door asking for candy, or how?
No, there doesn't seem to be anything like that. And if there are, I remember when I was a kid, we actually did Halloween because one of my friend's mom was from America, so she wanted to do Halloween. But what we did is you had to sign up, right, and then you sort of marked the doors. So there was like a set route beforehand. You didn't just go to random people's houses.
No, my house is also, I think, outside of any of these set routes, if there are kids doing it at all. Halloween has actually been a very divisive topic in Norway. Maybe we should do like an episode on that, because this has been like a cultural push and pull, which it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally culture war, right? You have like the reactionary people who hate Halloween, and they write about how the kids are like egging their houses or
Forget about woke.
TPing their houses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Halloween. That's where it's at. That's the real culture war.
Well,
Got to get
yeah,
Jordan
it's-
Peterson on this.
It is brought in. I think it's mostly sort of corporate driven culture,
yeah,
because they can sell the candy, and they've been
Yep.
selling out. Like my wife showed me an article recently that the candy shops, or sort of the I don't know if you have this, how many people have this solution, like when you buy the candy from like these bar type solutions where you just buy it by weight. When I was in the United States, like they buy like frozen yogurt by weight and a lot of these other things, but they didn't have that candy bar where you get like a plastic bag or something and you put in
just pick and
candy and
mix
you weigh
candy.
it.
Yeah.
The pick and mix thing, but that certain of these pick and mix trays are just completely emptied out, because like it's been some TikTok trend about creating like this kind of mixed trays. It's extremely autistic in a way, like, but they have specific setups about how they're making these sort of ASMR videos where they're like stacking candy in certain configurations, and all of the consumers are
it's
just
like
buying
actually
it.
autistic. Okay, I thought you were joking, but that sounds like something actual autists would watch.
Yeah, but it's like this kind of circular plastic trays, right, with rooms inside, and they're stacked on top of each other, and you're supposed to have like one pink and one blue and one pink, and you need specific styles of candy to make it look a certain way, and because of this, they're selling out actually in the stores. So
Is this kind of like those videos on TikTok where people just like dump a bunch of like laundry detergent and like soap into like a huge like basin and
it's nothing like
just
that.
slosh it all around?
It's just like a little tasteful, tray that you could serve Halloween candy out of.
Right.
That I guess it just caught on. If it goes viral, then you sell all the candy. So that's a good thing. But yeah, the Norwegian culture war around. I mean, I feel like it really intensified the period because people were, this old people especially were sort of concerned about the, what do you call it, like property damage from it.
Yeah.
Because the kids were getting carried away with like this egg tossing and toilet papering houses. And they hadn't understood the concept fully. Usually, typically, like you'd ask for candy, or if they don't give you candy, you're supposed to TP their houses. So I'm not exactly sure on the rules or how strictly that is done. But some kids got really out of hand with this stuff. Like they would, go like egg people's doors, they go shit in their yards or something if they didn't give you candy. At least that's what I remember from like the early aughts. And especially old people just hated this stuff. They just weren't interested. They wanted to have like the Christmas carols. That's what they were used to. People. This is like this shared British tradition, I think, where you would go around with the Santa Claus hat and just sing a carol, and they'd give you an orange.
Yeah, that's something that's happened here.
Yeah, and it sort of went out of style. But the old people, they still want that. So you typically like, okay, we can. You can show up with the ghost heads and the Frankenstein
dressed like Dracula, but you have to sing a song.
Yeah, you have to do the Christmas carols, and then we'll give you the candy. So we'll meet you halfway on that one. And there was also
the synthesis has been achieved.
The drug scare, which I don't know if and this is something that this didn't happen. But everybody thought it happened. Is that kids were getting ecstasy in in like their candy bowls or something, like the candy packs from people, which is I mean, it was sort of stories that were shared in the newspapers. But as far as I know, there's not a single confirmed instance of a kid actually getting ecstasy pills, like these kind of smiley. They look like these kind of fluoride multivitamin. What do you call it? The Flintstone pills or something.
The gummy bears.
Gummy bears. Yeah, but I mean, there was no confirmed instance of that happening. But I just remember everybody was talking about that, and all the young mothers were just scared out of their minds for it.
Yeah, finding knives in the Snickers bars.
Yeah, I just put my shaving razors in their in their granola. So, but yeah, that's some Norwegian Halloween lore. It's been a tough adaptation. I for some reason I think like the Swedes would adapt.
And you talked about like it becoming sort of like it's just sort of like a merchant class sort of push to it, and I see it really when I go to the store. I went to the store today and a little bit before the show, and to the grocery store, and they have this. Oh, it's Halloween. Here's the trough of like pre-packed candy you can buy for when the kids come and knock on your door. But obviously, from the design, like this is some excess production bullshit from like some Eastern European country that they've just imported like really cheap, right?
Looser candy.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting off-brand everything, and it's the chocolate tastes kind of weird, like they do when you get those during Christmas. You get those like calendars right before Christmas, and there's like a little chocolate every day, but the quality of that chocolate is really bad, right? Because it's been produced in like Maristonia, right? Like a country that doesn't really exist anymore.
It's Cold War leftovers.
Someone found it.
Sort of dead soldiers. Unit. They had their backpacks to like the last meals or something, and their rations contained some chocolate bits that they were just kind of pulled out and reboiled, and they put in the calendars.
Yeah, now
So
it
they
looks
could
like a little
increase
Santa
their
Claus. Yeah.
increase their GDP by 2% by exporting it to rich countries.
Yeah. And that's the circle of life, I guess. All right. I guess we're in a bit of a silly mood, so I think we should just get the first news item out of the way, which is probably something a lot of people have seen. The Vatican has unveiled a new cartoon mascot for its church, for the Catholic Church, which is a union of anime and what he says. He said something specifically. The image represents a happy union between Christian symbols and Japanese culture. So this is Luce, the new mascot for the Catholic Church, and it might be my algorithm, but I would say this is a huge success because everyone's been posting about Luce. So regardless of any publicity is good publicity, right? So regardless of your opinion on Luce, I think it's been a huge success. And hopefully
We're
the kids
we're
will
getting
like
to
it,
the
because
kids.
obviously this is for kids. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I wasn't. I mean, I've just seen this, and I'm focused on other things. So I've sort of just stepped over these, but they've made memes. The only thing I picked up on was that the orthos have tried to bully the Catholics over this, which they usually do because they're running
The
very hard
pecking
on
order
the.
is Ortho, Catholic, Protestant, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think the Protestant has been piling on this as well. But the orthos run very hard on the kind of the macho Christianity, the muscular Christianity brand. So they'll just dunk on the Catholics for bringing in anime. But yeah, I think the kids like this. if I mean, why not? If you could just make wholesome Christian anime or something. But is there something more to this? The design, or is it?
Well, let's see here. Archbishop Rino Frischiella, the Vatican's chief organizer for the church's upcoming Jubilee year, said that the mascot was created from the desire to enter into the world of pop culture so beloved by young people. Named after a Latin word for light, the mascot was designed by Simone Legno, an Italian co-founder of lifestyle brand Tokidoki, which is inspired by Japanese culture. He also designed Luce's pilgrim friends, Faye, Zin, and Sky. The Archbishop described Luce's design features as the typical elements of the pilgrim, pointing to her shining eyes and symbol of the hope in her heart. And she's also got muddy boots. I think that's a nice touch on these, like she's been walking for quite a while. The image represents a happy union between Christian symbols and Japanese culture. According to Catholic news agency, the Vatican's Dicastery for Evangelization will host a space dedicated to Luce and friends at the Lucca Comics and Games Convention in Italy on Wednesday. It marks the first time a Vatican dicastery has taken part in such an event, which the Archbishop said will allow us to speak to younger generations about the theme of hope, which is more central than ever in the evangelical message. Luce will also be the Vatican's mascot for Expo 2025 in Osaka, Japan, where the Holy See, the governing body of the Catholic Church, will host a pavilion in collaboration with Italy. In the Catholic Church, the Jubilee is a special year of forgiveness and reconciliation and is usually celebrated every 25 years. It will begin on Christmas Eve 2024 and end 6th of January 2026. Yes, Nordan says she's supposed to be a pilgrim. Yeah. There's something with the staff as well. That's a symbol of a pilgrim or something. I don't quite remember. I'm not big on Catholic lore.
Well, I think
honestly.
it does seem to work. I was trying to look up terms that are like the Catholic equivalent of kosher or halal, and I think sacred anime is going to be that's what this is.
I think it's going to speak to the Zoomers, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, the market is there, right? You have the Groypers are there already. They're watching anime. Don't kid yourselves. Yeah. So no,
Yeah,
I think this is going to be
good luck to the Vatican.
Huge.
You know, regardless of how this goes, it's already been a huge success just in publicity sense. Whether or not it's going to convert anyone on Twitter, I don't know. But I think it's just some wholesome, nice fun. Okay. So next up, do you want to talk about? Are we going to go into election stuff, or do you want to talk about?
We could end on the election stuff. I think maybe
Okay.
if you want to look at the pooping at work article.
Let's talk about pooping.
Is that some low hanging silly head content?
Yeah. So this episode's name is Content because the pigs yearn for the trough, and we're here to shovel some nice content right into it for you guys to roll around in, I guess, or at least devour happily. So I just had to kind of include this when I think this was written today. Yeah, it was published today, this morning, in one of the biggest newspapers in Norway, and
This is
the
why you pay
headline
for a
says,
monthly subscription. I mean, how
"This is
else
why
are
I
you gonna
pay
get
for the
stuff?
monthly
Yeah.
subscription." Yeah, and it's actually quite expensive. So please leave a super chat because this is what you're paying for. Do you find it embarrassing to do number 2 alongside others? Here are experts' advice and rules. Is it okay to poop at work? Can you answer the call of nature in other people's company? Uh, if so, what do you do once the pressure is on? I think also from the translation here is, if you're at a party, do you go poop? Right. Um, and this is under the newsletter of like this guy writes a newsletter on like how to raise your children essentially. Uh, which is kind of, why is he writing about this? I don't know. For some, this is a narrow case. Um, it's a it's a simple case, or it's very easy to be seen on your way out from a toilet visit. It's, after all, quite natural. For others, it is unthinkable. Why is it so awkward that others know that you have emptied your bowels? Radar Bowitz Heliason has studied cultural history for a number of years, and according to him, everybody goes to the bathroom. Well, thank you. Nevertheless, there is something we do not like to talk about. Or it is something we do not like to talk about. I think most people want to present themselves in the best possible way. Read on to read the customs and use the experts' do advice further down in the article. So, this is a funny translation. You get it from a young age, is basically what he's saying. Like you're getting it in your breast milk when you're young. Poop is disgusting. It's a waste product and it smells bad. It's as disgusting when animals do it, and it's embarrassing when humans let it loose. I mean, that's quite fair. I mean, we all enjoy, uh, laughing at the Indians for not having this under control, essentially. Um, so it's very true that it's a cultural thing, right? In other words, it's not something we want to represent ourselves with. He says, "Thank you. How much did you pay for your education?"
It's been fairly uncontroversial so far. Yeah.
To be fair, like this is peak. Like you're just some cultural history researcher, and some like 20-year-old journalist calls you up for like a comment on like the most stupid article ever. And you just kind of have to answer like, yes, we don't like poop. uh let's see here. Although it's awkward for many, it is not thus said that it violates any social codes to respond to the call of nature. He gives advice on when and how to safely go on the bathroom in social situations. Quote, when we relate to others, good tact and tone, when we are in situations with others, good tact and tone is important. It's about showing consideration. If a number of us go to the bathroom to do number 2, it can create a bad atmosphere for those around us, but you can usually avoid it quite easily. Celebrity doctor Kaveh Rashidi says that he believes it is both common and human to be reluctant to go to the bathroom outside of the home. To poop is, after all, something very private to us. Many see it as embarrassing or unsanitary. Therefore, some people completely avoid using public toilets, he says. Staying in the bathroom is basically harmless, but if it happens several times or over a long period of time, it can have unfortunate consequences. And you have to be careful if you're someone like me, from the school of George from Seinfeld. When the going gets tough, you have to, the shirt has to go. And if you for some reason forget to bring to take your shirt back on after the process is finished, so to speak, you could end up in some awkward social situations if you're at a function, right? Yeah, Krang Sang says stage fright, but the thing is, you're having stage fright by like pooping, in which, like, it's not like you're sitting next to someone. Like, I can understand some people get stage fright at a urinal I guess, because you're standing literally quite next to someone. But I don't understand it if you're doing it in like a separate enclosure, even those where there's like you can put your feet under. I don't get
Well,
it.
it's yeah,
I mean, the
it's
competition is to mog everyone else with the biggest shit.
well, yeah, I think it is for some people. This stuff is actually difficult, and it's not not a typical topic. So I think it's more, the only point of reference I have is actually like from American Pie, right? You remember that the first movie, or was it American Pie 2 or something? They have the character that they call Shit Break, or is that from another movie? I'm going to Google that.
All right, I'm just gonna read on for a moment. Wait, hang on. I'm gonna read the Tomahawk says, "Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time." Very good.
Yes, it's the character that's called Fitch. Let's see here in American Pie. Are people too young to have watched that movie? Let's see, Fitch, Paul Fitch. Like the joke is that he can't go to the bathroom in school, right? So he has to go all the way home.
He has to drive home to poop.
To go to the
I remember
bathroom.
now. Yeah,
and I think they give him a
yeah.
laxative or something so that he has to like run home and crap his pants. Something that was the joke. So that's always funny. At least if you, I think that's the reason that people are probably reluctant to talk about it, because it's funny for other people.
To mess with you. Yeah.
In the case that
Perseus von Hohenheim says, "Dropping a deuce naked is the way to go." I mean, when
just take off all the clothing. This is how you mug other men, by the way. It's just
when the going gets tough, that's how you do it. Yeah.
You just walk into you got to walk into the bathroom and just remove all clothing instantly. It tends to work. 100% success rate.
He also says, I probably prefer taking a crap at home, mainly because I prefer to shower afterwards. Second best option is to have some man wipes. What's a man wipe?
Is it like dude wipes?
What's a dude wipe?
It's like baby wipes, but I guess they're sort of custom made with
they're just like designed. Yeah, they look.
It's
like
a subsidiary of Black Rifle Coffee or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know this existed. This is quite literally baby wipes for men. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the need. I saw it on Shark Tank, and they were just made fun of, like, for featuring that product. But
it probably works.
I get it. I mean, you're in a lot of situations where you might not have access to a toilet or something, and you're going to be sweaty or something like this, and you might need
I
to.
have literally baby wipes, in the boot of the trunk of my car, because if I'm moving something, or let's say I'm like hauling some trash or something and my hands get dirty, like the worst thing I know is, first of all, I don't mind having my hands dirty when I do work, but I really hate having my hands sort of like sticky or oily. And especially if I'm gonna like get into the car and drive afterwards, I'm gonna have my hands all over like the steering wheel and the console, right? So I do literally have baby wipes in my car, but I don't buy like the ones that look like Axe body spray just because I'm a man. That's nice. That's very cool. All right. If you often ignore the call of nature, he says, it can increase the risk of constipation, and at worst, it can lead to hemorrhoids and anal fissures. So don't hold it in, guys. It's, rip off your clothes, get it out. That's the way to do it. Doing the number 2 at work. Now, for everyday scenarios, pooping at work, is that all right? There are no official figures on how many people find it embarrassing to poop at work, but in an informational survey the doctor did on Instagram and Snapchat, 146 people responded during Monday afternoon. So 3 out of 5 in my unpretentious survey, or unofficial survey, answered that they think it's nice to go. It's fine to go in a public bathroom. Despite that, there was a towering majority who said that they do poop at work. It's nice to go, whatever. Okay. So apparently in Queensland, Australia, so someone just made like an infographic where it says it's okay to poo at work. In Queensland, Australia, statistics show that more people are reluctant to go to the bathroom at work. There, the health agency has launched a campaign to break the stigma around doing number 2 at work. It's okay to poo at work, reads the text in an Instagram post. So they got the Gen Z sort of department to 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 head this campaign apparently. Because this image is gonna like destroy a boomer, right? If this was hung up somewhere.
No, they'll pull it down.
Yeah.
It's too much.
It's completely within reason to do number 2 at work, but it's all about timing. Take a break or find time when you can be alone, he says. But like some people are overthinking this way too much. If a presentation is being held, you have to stay, or if you're going to a meeting, yes. Otherwise, it's free. That way, you don't occupy someone else's time or attract unnecessary attention with it. Could you imagine, like, you're in the middle of an important meeting, and then you just go, well, I have to take a shit, and then you just leave.
This is alpha stuff. This is how you
I need to do this more.
diplomacy, right?
I have, yeah, I'm going to have to study this technique. I honestly, book a 4-hour meeting and then 1 hour into
make
it,
them
just
wait.
leave.
You make them wait 2 hours for you, and then you come in, you sit like 10 minutes, and I gotta take a shit, so they just leave them there.
Oh, let's see here. Nordan says, often it's hard to tell the difference between a sincere boomer meme or a post-ironic zoomer meme. Well, you're right. This might actually be this could be like a HR department boomer meme. You're right. Okay. Rashidi also has some advice for those who find it difficult to go to the bathroom at work. Try to go to the bathroom during quiet periods or while colleagues are busy. Use a toilet that is far away from where you work and that ensures you will have more privacy. Lastly, remember that no one is monitoring your your toilet visits. Just like you're not monitoring someone else's. I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to pull up an Excel spreadsheet and
yeah, that's a lot of assumptions there.
Yeah. Let's say, do you dare number 2 at work? Yes, I dare do number 2. Like 93% of people have responded. So 7% of people say that nope. Out of 5,000 say that nope. I'm gonna keep it in until I'm home.
Well, that's not insignificant, actually. It's almost
no. It's actually
1 out of 10.
Like if you find out that the person on the other end of the negotiating table is one of those 7%, that's quite powerful. Let's see here. They need to add a toilet button on the TV. Well, what you have to do is when you're in like one of those awful, 50-person Teams meetings, you have to use the raise hand function, and then you say, "Well, I have to go to the bathroom," and then you can leave.
You can just turn off the camera and bring it with you, I think.
And that's one way to do it too. Let's see here. What are they talking about here? Number 2. Oh yeah. Okay. So what do you do if you're at a function or a party? So you're at a party or on a vorspiel or whatever, and before you know it, the need arises. How do you solve it the best possible way? According to the professor guy or whatever, the rules of the game depend on the size of the company. Apparently, there's rules to this. If you're in larger company, there are often several in a larger party. There are often several toilets available, so there's little risk of unpleasant situations. He says, very nice. But what if you're invited to someone's house and only one toilet is available? Again, it's all about timing. When you have to go to the bathroom, you may want to take a look around the room. If all the guests are present, you can be sure that no one is doing their duties, and then you can discreetly withdraw. If someone is missing from the company, this is just like basic social intelligence, right? If someone is missing from the company or the party, there is a possibility that they're using the toilet. To show consideration, maybe a good idea to wait until the party is fully formed again. It can be embarrassing for both the one who is in the bathroom and the one who's going in if you're standing outside the door waiting. Yeah.
It's like when you're on an airplane. That's the only time I find it uncomfortable, because I know there's like a long line and
that's true.
You're extremely cramped. So it would be more interesting to hear about that. People who are uncomfortable using the toilet on an airplane or on a train or something.
I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but I can certainly feel like the rush, or like trying not to take up more time than is necessary, right? Because it's so limited.
The space is very limited, and there's many people who are going to go. There's no plausible deniability. Like people are not going to walk around on the plane and wait for you to finish or something and go to some other toilet. It's pretty much that one place.
Yeah.
But I do have some interesting thoughts in terms of using the bathroom, especially at a job or in these corporate buildings, just based on my experiences. Because I mean, the issue has never been, that I'm uncomfortable using them for number one or number two. But if say you go to that bathroom, there's always the issue there that somebody else has made a mess when I show up there. And
yeah.
it doesn't really bother me because I'm not super hygienic or sort of an hygiene freak. But I know that if I leave the bathroom without cleaning that up, and somebody
Someone's
sees me
gonna
leaving
think
the
it's
bathroom,
you.
that's me doing that, And
Yeah,
I've
that's
always
true.
just this is a gamble, right? This is sort of okay. I don't want to clean up other people's poo pee pee messes, but I know that if I'm not doing that, people are going to assume it's me, and then it's like that's like you're breaking, what do you
Is
call it,
this
breaking
some kind
kayfabe
of
or something. I can't recover from that. I just so I end
I
up just having
understand,
to
yeah.
clean up other people's messes and using. I like it when they have this kind of with these kind of smelly. It's not perfume. This kind of smell spray
Oh yeah.
bottles.
Yeah,
So
you can
yeah,
spray.
it just covers up the problem. But I don't have to deal with if there's
But
some after smell.
I'm sure you're aware of the shopping cart litmus test. Is this some kind of weird better version of it? Because in the toilet, the stinky toilet litmus test, you're isolated from the world around you, but you're only sort of faced with potential consequences. Is
Yeah,
this a
it
better
is.
test? Like if you actually clean up after someone else, is that a better shopping cart litmus test?
Well, yeah, I mean, but of course, I don't think so actually, because they you might get caught in that. But I'm just thinking about kind of there are some daredevils out there, and when I'm walking into a corporate toilet and it's not flushed, like the turd is still in the bowl. This is a gangster I'm dealing with. Like this is a Russian roulette player in a sense, because that guy could have known that there was somebody else standing outside who would have walked straight in, but he took that risk anyway. He just like
He thrives on the
he
rush.
just let it rip and walked straight out. He didn't even flush or wash his hands or anything, and he could have gotten caught. It's very hard to recover from that. I mean, at least in my own head, it's like I would just go wild with like the potential reputational damage of of doing something like that. Because I know that at least some people are extreme about hygiene, and probably one of the worst ways you can, even if you're not awkward socially, if people think you have some hygiene issue, then that very easily becomes a problem. So yeah, that's something that's bothered me when I'm using toilets and there's always something where there's like pee on the floor or something. It's like I have to clean this up now. I just like my risk tolerance for that kind of stuff, like walking out and just having someone else walk in after me.
Right.
Like maybe if it's some kind of like job party or something and it's like midnight and everybody's hammered.
Yeah,
then I probably don't care as much. Okay, it's like
yeah,
they don't have their cognitive ability with them. But if you're like in the middle of the workday and you're dealing with that kind of an issue, it's like it's a rough one.
Maybe I'm gonna have to push myself and become one of those guys who just do the Russian roulette then, right? Just let it rip. Just walk out.
I'm just wondering if those people are
have like Bad to the Bone playing on my headphones, like
randomly. It's that riff that just goes off randomly.
Oh yeah, it's just that part. Yeah. All right. I think that's quite enough time on literal shit content. We have some more stuff, but I think we'll bring it back around if there's more time. I think it's time to talk a bit about election stuff. I have an article that we can sort of talk over, but you wanted to talk a bit about sort of the map first, right?
Well, I thought we could finish off with the map, but there's at least some trends that have been going on. Maybe I could talk about one of them.
Yeah,
right? I'll try to share. Maybe I could share.
Okay, you can share first, and then.
Sorry, I just need to sort my tabs because there's a lot of them. And share the screen. Like,
There's this Krang Shang says leave the door open. Isn't there like I think I've seen like it's like a matrix of how the various presidents would respond to someone knocking at the toilet stall, and like Trump would like open the door or something. Was the take. Some would say like occupied, some would say come in, right? If someone has that, please. I don't think you can share stuff in the maybe you can't post link in the chat, but that would be great. Okay, here we go.
all right.
You might have
So
to zoom in a bit here.
yeah, in the development of the conversation that I'm seeing around the election, it's sort of like two in the Maya camp. That there's two archetypes of the approach. That's like the people who believe that this is basically one and done for Trump, and it's they're already celebrating. And then you have number two here, which is Joel Berry. It's like blaming white women for killing babies and sending them to the forever wars. And I'm I'm getting a little bit tired of seeing it, to be honest. It's that there is something just outright kind of pathetic about the whole thing. I get where they're coming from here, because this the abortion thing, or the Roe versus Wade, will be exactly what it's likely to have tipped the election. If Kamala wins, then that's probably going to be the one thing. If that hadn't been altered, then I think it would have been in the bag for Trump. You think that's safe or no?
If it hadn't been altered, what do you mean altered?
Yeah, I mean, if they hadn't repealed Roe versus Wade.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah.
So they're going with this kind of like the problem is that it's just, I get the sentiment, I get the people are anti-abortion or whatever, but it's always like presented in this extremely sort of pathetic, whiny way, that there's like, it's the honorable white men that they just want to provide for their families, and the inflationary Bidenomics are just ruining their chances. So it's the white women, they want to kill their babies, and it's like the same every time. They just keep sobbing about this. And I mean, with this guy, it's very particular. He's like what is he, like the Babylon Bee editor, and he's of the tribe as well. Right. So,
I was gonna say,
so
I was gonna say my spider sense was tingling, but that's good.
But I mean, he's not the only guy to sit and blame this, and there are other goyim who are going after white women as well. But like with this guy, there's so many layers to this post. He's because this is like from the
it's your forever war.
Yeah, but this is it's the Bush era, like they're in Iraq or something here. That's what I assume. So they're basically like doing stuff that Israel wants them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
With a volunteer army. Doing basically asymmetrical warfare against Arabs with a volunteer army. There's no draft doing this. You can say that it was horrible geopolitically for the United States, which I think it was, but it's like it's so weird, this thing. Yeah, it's the white women's fault that we ended up in this war, and yeah, especially
also
when
someone like Joel Berry will never probably be drafted.
I mean, there's no draft. It's a fully volunteer army, so if he doesn't want to go, you could probably make up some excuse. Right? They'll find some lucrative, get some other people to go anyway. So it's like this kind of imaginary problem that they're dealing with here.
Unless this is some real 5D chess thing, and like they're playing both sides into shifting the Overton window into accepting drafts.
Yeah, I have no clue, but I put out two
incredibly conspiratorial
like question polls recently, just to gauge the to gauge people on the sort of whammon question. This was the first one because it's I'm sort of curious as to how deep the demoralization ops have gone with women in general. So I asked the first question here, without looking it up, how many sexual partners does the average American female have during her lifetime? Because I keep seeing, like, you're seeing they're blaming blaming the slutty women with the abortions on the election, and then they're blaming them for fucking up civilization, which is the other thing. So I mean, I just the actual result here that I could get from this kind of center of disease control or whatever, it's 4. That's kind of the median number of sexual partners for an American woman during her lifetime. It might be understated. Like if you I referenced American Pie previously.
Well, average
right?
or
They say the
median, I think
plus 3.
It's a very, very, important difference there.
Plus, women are gonna like subtract 3, or men are gonna add 3 or something. But I don't know if you're just doing it on some kind of center of disease control form. I don't know if people embellish it there as well. I have no kind of way of knowing that. I don't know if you have any reference for that. If they like to, psy up themselves by falsifying their poll numbers when it's anonymous. But I mean, let's say like for like a regular woman in America, and this is not just like a white girl or a black girl or something, they will have had 4 partners by the time they're like in their 50s or something. That's one partner a decade, and that's probably not even evenly distributed. Say they had more like a more active dating life in their teens, early 20s, and then later maybe they swapped. So like for the average, but yeah, even the average number, if you account for these kind of like super high, the super sluts or whatever, they're still at like 4.5 or something, at 5 or something. So it's not. There's a lot of focus on just kind of reposting these extreme scenarios, these extreme kind of fringe cases, and just ignoring the fact that actually for the normal person this is just not the case. And I guess I'm proud of the respondents because most of them got the correct answer. But you have people who think it's like 8+. It would have been interesting if I had it more granular. I was asking like 12+, 20+, and so on. But I mean, if you're just on Twitter, if you're just on the social media and you're watching this kind of constant barrage of demoralization.
I responded to this poll and I had to sort of think for a moment, because I thought that maybe if it's actually average, you would have some outliers really like jigging up the numbers versus like median. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just don't think that, it's just like when we looked at the Tinder use article, like you have certain people who are boosting the numbers extremely high. And I think if you go like among homosexuals, it's a lot worse. Like they actually have genuine,
That's the thing we covered on the nuance pill article read we did, was that everything that we say happens to modern dating culture seems to be just homosexual dating culture.
Yeah, and that's sort of the frame, and you get that impression, and not just from social media, but I guess also if you're watching some of the mainstream shows like Sex and the City, and it does portray people as being a lot more sexualized than I think they actually are. And I did another poll as well. Let's see here, we have. I'm getting a little confused.
Bill Wilson says, I was going to ask if we were talking about cold today, but I showed up and clicked to a random spot, and we were talking about constipation. Welcome to the Longhouse, Bill Wilson. I'll talk about literal shit before we do.
This is the outhouse show.
Outhouse.
See, I did another one as well. Without looking it up, how many abortions does the average American woman have during her lifetime? And of course, this is a bit. The median is 0, just across the board. Even if you account for race. If you start breaking it down racially, you say like if they're black, it's like 1 out of 4 will have had at least 1 abortion, and more if it's white, then it's maybe 1 out of 10 women will have had at least 1 during her lifetime. But like the general number of abortions, especially if you look at like graphs of developments over time, it is very much on the down trend, even though you'd think it would be a lot worse considering the culture war, the intensity of the culture war dialogue. But I do think that a lot of people have a very kind of they really overestimate the numbers on these things when they're talking about these morning after pill. That would be interesting. I don't know.
That's unfortunately probably not very traceable, but that would be incredibly cool to have.
I don't know how people feel about that, especially if you're like on the religious rights. I know that that's the way it is in Norway. Like with the Christian party, is that they have actually tried to help, increase the availability of like condoms and morning after pills to have less abortions. But I don't know if you're like Catholic, then it's kind of like 1 for 1. Almost, it probably doesn't help. So I'm not sure. I mean, if you think that like an abortion at 2 months is more responsible than at 6, then a morning after pill would be better than an abortion at 2, I guess.
Yeah.
So that would be that's just the whammon stuff. Maybe you could look at whole math or something later, because I'm seeing it a lot on my timeline. There's like this women bashing. It seems to be kind of a trend, like a cyclical thing. Sometimes it's just really popular. Everybody's just talking about women are at fault for everything, and then it goes away again, and then it goes back. But I feel like now we're at that point, especially with the election. And
I think the sensible centrist stance here is to look at the average and say that anything that's incredibly above that should be discouraged heavily by social norms and or laws.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So,
but at least I think
get rid of all of the sort of Twitter, the type of people who end up in these like home math videos, right?
Yeah, I think if you should at least balance out your view, right? We're bringing the whole math factfulness instead of just looking at the
thoughts will be patrolled. We
OnlyFans
just have to make sure we patrol the right thoughts.
Yeah, you should at least look at the general stats to get a better picture of it, and not have this kind of hysterical overreactions to the femoids, right? Because in many cases they're, I mean, there was some other guy that I responded to as well, where they were talking about he was talking about COVID lockdowns and the vaccines. Mr. Obvious, I think that's his name. He does YouTube videos and has like a Twitter account where he was suggesting that it's because of the COVID response was like a result of the female impulse, and that females were sort of compliant with the vaccine regime or whatever. But every stat that I looked up suggested that actually the like anti-vax and vaccine skeptic sentiments were actually higher among women in general, and especially if you look at these sort of anti-vax movements that popped up, there's no lack of women there.
That's true, but it's all sort of like it's the kooky women every time, right?
Yeah, of course, but that's not the allegation here. Right? The allegation here is like women are like the problem here is women, right? They're the ones fucking this up. Even though if you look at certain numbers, especially among like hesitancy and anti-lockdown attitudes, I think they were actually higher on certain aspects of that than the men. So I often just find this this is like throwing it at the feet of women to be quite misplaced, just based on the overall numbers that I'm seeing. But yeah, we could look at that article, and then I'll look at the electoral map afterwards. So we'll get back to the woman question, because it's quite central demographically to how I think the election turns out.
Sure. So this is an opinion piece. This guy is a section leader in the biggest union in Norway. So he's very much on the left, so to speak. And he's written a chronicle called "A Fascist in the White House?" ? Now he walks that one back real fast. Whether Donald Trump is as an individual is a fascist in the strict sense of the word is of subordinate importance. Vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance said a few years ago that Donald Trump was America's Hitler. It did not prevent him from becoming a bedmate with the self-same man shortly thereafter. I guess running mate is the proper translation here. This is perhaps primarily a reminder of why fascism is so dangerous. As it grows and gains power and influence, it draws not only holy convictions, but also the opportunists and the accomplices. Well, or it could just be that American politics is, finding out how to call your opponent Hitler in 7 different ways these days. That's also part of it, Mr. Commentator guy.
Well, yeah, it's very much been part of the hysteria going back and forth. Yeah, there's a lot of misses on both sides. There's a lot of floundering toward the end of the race here. With the maybe we could look at some clips of like the Madison Square Garden rally. I mean, whatever you think of Trump, it was a pretty epic event. This is something I can see myself just going to for the entertainment value, because it's just really fun.
Whatever it was, it sure would have been fun, right?
I think whatever
and watch Elon Musk do like autistic yelling on the stage, and
there's just too many funny ones. There's just been an insane amount of like funny moments this election. I feel like, at least I'm trying to just relax a little bit and just look at it for it being funny. But I made a comment, I think 2 or 3 months ago, that MAGA would go through like a sort of Flanderization phase. If you're familiar with that term, it's like a term they use.
I'm familiar with Flanderization, but I'm not sure what it means in this context.
Well, it's like if you have a show like the Simpson is the example they use. That's with the character.
Yeah, no, I understand what it means.
Well,
but I'm not sure why you're saying that MAGA Flanderization. What are you putting in that?
Well, MAGA is basically going to become increasingly silly and caricatured as the election goes on, to just maintain attention from the voters. It's kind of like as you have these series like King of the Hill, or
you have to keep
the Simpsons, or these sitcoms where these
out of it.
The characters have to keep becoming crazier, essentially, just to keep the attention of the viewer. So they start off as being sort of reasonable, and they just get absolutely wacko. I mean, the Trump is doing like the trash man memes. I feel like that's because of the complete Flanderization. Maybe they'll come up with something else the last week, but he's showing up to rallies now wearing like a trash man outfit in a trash car, talking about, we're proud trash Americans. That's
one day
MAGA trash. That's kind of the slogan that they're going with.
It is inevitable, but it won't happen in this election cycle. But one day, if this continues on the current trajectory, we will get the Rizzler on a Trump rally, like the little fat boy who does like the
Costco family.
The Costco guys. Yeah. So they went on some show recently, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull that out in the last week.
They probably wouldn't do that because, politics isn't good for business in that sense. But that's what I'm saying. The inevitable trajectory is that this will happen, but it probably won't before the election is over.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be that. I wouldn't be out of character, at least for what's happening. If they're running with like the MAGA trash, basically, as their tagline, and it's come full circle to, especially like with the Madison Square Garden rally and the MAGA trash. This is peak Flanderization. Like, it can't get any sillier. But let's get through the article, and
yes,
we'll get back to that.
Since then, Trump and the MAGA coalition has become highly radicalized. Now, I know that they're saying highly radicalized, but from sort of the way you talk about them on this show, right? The way we are seeing them, it's almost like they've regressed, right?
Well, I think there's this sort of conflation, the mainstream, like they're really trying very hard to bring this fascism stuff out, but it never works. It didn't stick in 2016. It didn't stick in 2020. And I mean, regardless of how you think about this, for the people who are in Trump camp, they will just fortify their resolve. Yeah, they see, when they say Trump is a fascist, then they just think that, okay, Trump is a threat to the system, and we're backing the right horse here. So it's going to make them more confident. But I think some of the mainstream people are kind of getting shaky close to the result here. So they're just going back on instinct. They forgot about trying to be cool. They're just going back to the what do they call it, the derangement,
right?
The Trump derangement syndromes.
The presidential candidate is now openly talking about using. Well, that's also another commentary piece I saw, which was actually praising sort of post hoc. And I know that we gave Trump a lot of shit for the eating the dogs comment. I'm not sure if we said it at the time. it is one of those things where he could hijack the conversation with it, which obviously he did. Although we found it personally sort of kind of rambly and weird. But I did see a comment or like an opinion piece from someone, a political commentator here in Norway, saying that he basically did it again. He hijacked the conversation, and now we're just calling him a Nazi, and it's not working, right? So yes, I think what you're saying with them sort of reverting back to 2016 in a way is true. The presidential candidate is now openly talking about using the military against, quote, the inner enemy, warns that he will replace the entire country's top military leadership, views immigrants as pests and, quote, poor genetic material, and threatens their listeners that immigrants are cannibals or wild animals that eat people's pets and will cut the necks of people if given the chance. I'm sure that Trump has probably said something like this. Without a citation here, it's kind of hard to take it. I'm gonna have to
No, it's all there.
retranslate it
You
because
can find the quotes. Although he is like the enemy within. It's not. It's sort of the translating mess here. But he's talked about like the enemy within and poisoning the blood. That like the quotes are there from various rallies. You could pick
probably
pick them
up. But of course, I think only one of these would be considered as, if we're going to look in a vacuum, vaguely fascist. But I mean, we're getting very detailed here. He has said that he will be dictator for one day, and enticed voters that they will never have to vote again if he wins the election. At his election meetings, which increasingly have the character of a pure driver's cult, of a cult, the audience stands with a campaign posters where the messages are mass deportation and make America strong again. Well, I mean, those two aren't really. I mean, they are in the situation that the U.S. find themselves in. Mass deportation is a sort of valid tool on the table. Now, whether or not it's a viable and feasible tool is another discussion, right?
I mean, that's certainly what most of his supporters are banking on, right? I think that's if you take that out of the campaign, I think he loses a lot of energy. Many people are hoping for that. At least there's a big sort of chunk of people who are backing him 100% now, living on the prayer that he's going to do that, or at least make the border better in terms of the deportations. Like, I mean, I asked the question on Twitter.
Well, I mean, if that's what you're talking about, like, I mean, Kamala is talking about making the border better. If we're talking,
I think everybody's talking about
right?
that. But I think they're looking to Trump for that in terms of the deportation stuff. Like he's made very clear promises about it. The communication on that end has been, quite one-sided, quite decisive. But my question is, if he gets the vote, like what are his actual incentive to go through with that? That's kind of my problem with Trump, is that I think that if he wins, then he's basically set. He's not going to run for re-election. At least I don't think he can unless he changes the constitution to do that. I wouldn't put that beyond him.
I guess maybe if he has sort of this time around, his staff is more prepared. He could pull like an FDR thing, but it's going to be hard because everyone is going to be out to stop him. Right.
The immigrants themselves don't want to be deported. There's probably there's going to be like a line of people in the chain of command that will resist this stuff, whether it will be legally or just by like the bureaucrat veto, as you say. And like he himself, if you look at Trump and the people who are in his coalition government, they don't have anything to gain from deportation other than satisfying their voter base, who generally is just going to be satisfied anyway if he comes in. I feel like the hardcore MAGA base, they're behind him anyway, right? And if he serves up some excuse like, okay, I tried, but the bureaucracy, the deep state stopped me, Pelosi stopped me, the Congress stopped me or something, they're going to believe that. None of them are going to say that no, he was never going to do it anyway or something. That so far as I've seen, they've every time he served up some kind of half baked excuse about why he's not done something, no matter how unreasonable it is, in my opinion, they've always bought it. So I think he can just not do it and come up with some excuse. and everybody who's in government with him, whether it's like Elon or RFK, most of these people gain from immigration, whether it's like through cheaper labor or through cheaper labor. If you're like Elon, your own Tesla, like you're part of the richest people on the planet, you actually have quite a lot to gain from immigration. That's why he's talking about this kind of population stuff constantly, right?
But that's also, why Trump is someone who's good for someone like Musk to hitch his wagon to, because Trump really wants legal immigration and high quality immigration, which means, people who can code. Code Elon's rockets or something. Let's see here. The discussion about whether General Mark Milley was right when he called Trump a fascist through and through is now raging in full force. It is partly about if it is right to call Trump a fascist, and partly about if it's wise to do so. Many Besser Wizards, what's that in English? That's like a Norwegian German word. Maybe you have that in English. Now say that Kamala Harris should have refrained to do so, even after people from the circle around Trump had said many times that he has an open admiration for Adolf Hitler. In this text, I will not speak about the political strategy of the Democrats, designed in a situation that is increasingly desperate, in battle not only against the MAGA militia groups. What? You mean the feds? Fanatical evangelicals and fervent libertarians, but also some of the planet's richest men, and probably Russia. I know there are MAGA militia groups, but I mean, they're small and shaky, and a lot of them seem to have federal sort of
well,
moles.
You got to look at it like this: if they are of interest and they're likely to be infiltrated, then that's kind of their job anyway. So there's sort of no contradiction between saying that you have MAGA militia groups and that those groups are probably infiltrated. If the government sees them as a problem, then
fair enough.
They're very likely to do that.
Yep. But watch out for the fanatical evangelicals and fervent libertarians, right? But this is also partly why MAGA is going to be a very difficult umbrella to do anything with, right? Because this is a very disparate group of people. Some of these people want to be left alone. Some of these people want to turn America back into a holy empire of some sort, right? These guys want the boogaloo. Elon Musk wants more money for his programs, and Russia just wants to make chaos, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like they're disparate, but they're actually not. Let's see if I can find. I found something else on Twitter. They put out this global map of sort of all of the countries that if you do run the experiment.
Who's voting for Harris
and who's voting for Harris and who's voting for Trump, and then you could sort of see how how insanely accurate it is in terms of how the leaderships are interacting. Let's see if I can just find it. Okay, if I can share a little bit. You put it up on. Just share screen, and
let's see here.
There we go. It's not getting any. I don't think I'm going to be able to zoom anymore. Maybe if I could. Yeah.
So it's Russia and like Viktor Orban.
Well, see if I can get the other map so we could go and zoom a little bit, because that will be useful.
Okay.
It's the problem with these web solutions, that they're never quite reliable in terms of how you want them to act. Because now I can zoom here. So we have, the United States is the yellow here, and we have the Canada is the Carmelites, and we have like Western Europe, most of Europe here. And I mean, there's some countries in Africa and Iraq that they're kind of not that interesting. But we have the red here, that's Russia. You have the Russian adjacent countries in Europe. We'll zoom in a little bit. These are Hungary, here and Serbia here. I think some of these other Balkan states, I'm not exactly sure who this is. I think this is Moldova, and like the little strip here of red, that's Kaliningrad, so that's a part of Russia. And if we zoom in, zoom in, Jarvis, there we have everyone's favorite little red country here. That is Israel, right? And I think Michael Tracy posted that when they were surveying Israelites, like Israel is basically, they prefer Trump at a higher rate than any American state
Nice.
that's currently in play on the electoral map. So this is kind of how these alliances work out. You have the global homo blue, which is sort of the European, the WEF fans, and then you have like Russia, the Russian adjacent Europe,
proud
and
WEF
Israel.
stance. Yeah.
That is MAGA, essentially. And I mean, I've been talking about this for a long time, but you're seeing it not just in the leadership, but when they're polling the actual populations. So there seems to be like a very natural, smooth convergence of interests in terms of like the government style that they like and the types of values that they want internally and externally. So yeah, you could go back to the article, but I thought it was just nice to look at for reference.
It was. I will try to say something about whether it is right or not to say that Trump is a fascist, and something about why it really does not matter what he is. Following the classic fascist definition of historian Roger Griffin, which emphasizes the ultra-nationalist rebirth myth, it is difficult to find a more fascist slogan than "Make America Great Again." It signals that something has originally been lost, but also that the past can be recreated and the nation made great and strong and powerful again. Does that mean Trump and the MAGA movement are fascist? Although Trump himself is hardly an ideological fascist, in 2016 he realized that there is a mass basis for American fascism today. With the help of fascist Steve Bannon, citation needed, Bannon was, according to, well, you're going to fire and fury, okay. Bannon was, according to Michael Wolff's inside story from the White House, Fire and Fury, the only person who was sincerely engaged in actually changing the United States quickly, radical, and on the real, and for real. When Trump was in his darkest, most resolute and aggressive mood, he was the Bannon edition of himself. In his second and milder moments, he could be a more classical and centrist right-wing politician. Although his own political project was not fascist in the first place, he decided to run as the leader of this project. American neo-Nazis, Christian nationalists, alt-righters, and other fascists were gladly led by him. The thing is, what I always have a trouble understanding with this line of argument is that, well, who do you want them to vote for? Right? If there are people in your country who are actually fascists and like would pick up arms and fight for, reincarnated Adolf Hitler to rule America, who do you want them to vote for? Right? Would you want them to vote for Trump or someone who's more extreme?
It's a good question, but I think they've lost a lot of these purists, right? Whether you look at the Fuentes, Richard Spencer, even like David Duke, who endorsed Jill Stein on like some podcast or radio show. So he's lost a lot of the more of these kind of pure ideological types.
Maybe they really existed in 2016, and that's what scares these people still. I don't know. I'm just thinking, maybe I'm thinking from a cucked point of view here, but I'm just thinking on like a sort of social or like politic reconciliation level. Like how are you going to get through this if you're not willing to hear these people out at all? Because at some point you're going to have to put the boot down, and you have to do it for real once you do it, right? Like either the Dems, the Libs, whatever, have to stomp out any fascist and do it, thoroughly, or it's just going to grow, right?
Well, I mean, in some sense, you could just view it as a kind of containment, right? That they're voting, but they're voting for something that is less extreme than
Well, that's what I'm saying.
what
Why
they would
why
want.
aren't you happy with containment if you're already on the
Yeah,
side
I
of
mean, yeah, I guess it's
like
just sort of a stinker label
writing
that they
from
can
this
always
guy's
just
point
put
of
on.
view, he should be happy that they're voting Trump and not doing anything else.
Yeah, I assume he wants the denounce meme. Do you denounce? That's what he wants out of this, and loud denouncements and announce everyone and their mother who's talked to Spencer or something.
Yeah.
But
Several of
Trump
these,
doesn't do apologies right now. That's why his fans like him.
yeah, as Nordan says, Trump scares the host, so his actual politics doesn't really matter. Several of these have long since changed the United States at the state level to a society where queers have to go back into the closet, where women are denied self-determination over their own body, or the trade union movement is cowered and harmful literature is banned and exposed to regular book fires. That's a bit of a hyperbole, but
I thought Trump was like
the
pro-labor
trade
union
union
now.
was already cowering. The Democrats haven't been doing stuff for the trade union for
Well, I mean,
decades.
Trump had like a trade union guy at the RNC, right? So
Yeah,
he's been bringing those guys in. A lot of that, these appeals to the Rust Belt states, it's very much about like the trade union stuff and trying to get that working class coalition on board. I think the old school GOP was a lot better at cooking the trade unions and kind of stomping on their heads.
yeah. Now, of course, there are states where women are denied self-determination of their own body because the states then are having stricter abortion laws. Queers going back into their closet. I'm not. I don't know what that is about.
It does not seem to have been touched, as far as I know, by the Trump admin at all. But I
Yeah.
guess they just feel like it's kind of the specter of that happening.
This is
These
MAGA
people are
country now.
quite,
Yeah. Yeah.
These people are quite paranoid.
Harmful literature banned. It's funny because, going to school here, you always heard about like, oh, these books are banned in America. Like America keeps banning books all the time. And then when you look into it, it's like, yeah, like one mom got this book banned from like one school in like one random state, right? So,
Yeah, it's a lot of peculiar stuff as well. That yeah, I don't know. It's a big topic to get into.
yeah, I'm not going to bog us down. Sorry. The MAGA movement that took shape around Trump within the framework of the Republican Party had no actual political program. That's true. To the extent that it contained few traces of classical fascist thought. The main project can perhaps be described as generous tax cuts to the richest and an attempt to make neoliberalism a high renationalist project, in which the United States would regain its sovereignty. The goal was to reverse globalization and the rules-based world order, not least in terms of obligations through international climate cooperation. I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that Trump was against globalization. He was just against the US being taken advantage of as a sort of result of globalization, because he's more than happy to play diplomacy. I mean, he loves it, right? Because he can sort of flex his like, oh, I'm a businessman, I know how to do deals muscles.
Yeah, well, I mean, generally, when people talk about it, they have a very clear idea that this is about things like the UN, for example, or the
Yeah.
EU, or these kind of like global cooperation agreements, and not as much about
What
creating
he's
these bilateral agreements with.
he's
other
mad
countries.
that he pulled out of like the 2030 agreement or whatever, the Paris Accord or what it was called, right?
Yep.
That's what this is about. He's mad about that one, which no one is like. Everyone in Europe now is like secretly. I mean, my local government now recently just had a big talk about like, we're not going to make the 2030 thing. Like, I mean, and it was silly of us to basically assume that we could. So in terms of like, yeah, you're not being cooperative, but that feels very like hall monitor-esque to tell a nation that, oh, but you have to play ball with us on every front, right?
Ooh, but a lot of these politicians have kind of staked their entire career more or less on this system, right? And
Yeah, but this
trying
guy
to
isn't
make
necessarily,
this
well,
work.
he is a bit of a politician because he's like a trade union boss, but
Well, yeah,
uh,
generally they are quite invested in that stuff, especially when you get into the weeds of how politics works. So they have to kind of set their clocks after what the United States is doing. It would
Yep.
be better if they didn't have to, but the way that it is now, they're sort of at the mercy of the United States, and the
That's fair.
predictability comes. The predictability comes from them. So when they
Yep.
get you get guys like Trump who's going to what does he say? Stop following the false song of globalism or something. They just go, oh god damn it, we have to reshuffle the whole deck. Basically, we have like the entire
Yeah, I
system
just
is
figured
now
out all
in
the
jeopardy.
UN sort of the 12 what's it, like the 12 sustainable future goals or whatever that everyone keeps following these days. In that area, Trump managed to destroy a lot in a short time during his time as president. Political vigor is otherwise not something associated with Trump, but as the journal The Economist convincingly argues in its latest edition, it's a misinterpretation. No one has changed as much on the very conditions of the public conversation in the United States. What are you talking about? Political vigor is what Trump is known for. Like that's basically all he's got, right? Maybe the
I don't
translation
know,
here is
like
weird.
definitionally, what is the? Do you have a better translation for this? Because
Let
it seems
me
a
let me
bit
pull up
ambiguous.
the Norwegian version on the side here. Let's see here. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, political will, basically political willpower is what he's saying.
Yeah, so this is sort of. I mean, with Trump, it depends on how you interpret it, but he does seem to have like a political ADHD problem,
That's
where
true.
he does a lot of stuff, but he seems to have problem focusing attention on one thing. It's like, okay, this is my one ideological case that I'm going to get
He
done.
kept, I
It's really
mean, to
more
be
sort
fair,
of.
he kept building the wall throughout his entire term, I believe, and it just stopped when Biden got into
No,
power.
I don't think he did. I got like a little bit done on
No,
that.
I'm
I think
sure.
sort of he didn't. At least that's my
Well,
interpretation.
I'm
It
not
was.
saying they built like a massive amount of wall, but they kept building the wall all the way. Like they
Yeah, I
continued
mean, he
working on
did a
the wall.
lot of executive orders, right? Where it's basically he comes in as president, he puts out an executive order, but those are easily reversed by the next president. So if it's not backed up by legislation or by Congress, then it's not going to stick as well, and that's kind of the problem. That's decided this ADHD thing, where this. I mean, what he did that did stick was like the Supreme Court justices, and they can create new legislation that actually lasts. But all of these executive orders are they're very vulnerable to change when a new president comes in and gives new orders. So it's really like this kind of, okay,
Yeah,
I'll just write
they
this order
built
here and
hundreds of miles of wall. Maybe it's like a definition of barrier and wall, but I just googled it. Someone's saying there is no wall. I mean, they built a lot, but of course, a wall isn't very effective when it's incomplete because you can just go around it.
yeah, my impression is that it was quite limited in terms of what was actually needed for this, and as a sort of total border security. I mean, he put out executive orders to limit
Oh yeah,
immigration
yeah,
as well, but in terms of longevity of that project, there was just not a lot there.
sure.
It's a lot of spasms, political spasms from him, but there's a few things that actually lasts. Like the lasting things from Trump is going to be the metapolitical things. I think in the way that he's changed conversations around it and changed how people think about politics. But his ability to just get in and structure a way to go about his agenda, I think, is quite lacking in many ways. And it has this kind of, I'll say it again, the kind of ADHD behavioral pattern.
Yeah. Hang on. People are talking about fences versus walls, and I'm looking at pictures. Maybe this is like this. The reporting on this is very spotty because the pictures are of like concrete walls or like the steel 9 meter tall steel thing, and I'm not seeing fences. So, but I'm sure there's a lot of weak points. Let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. Political vigor, blah blah blah. Or as the Economist writes, one startling fact is that hang on a moment. One startling fact is that regardless of who is elected, Mr. Trump's ideals will win. He, not Miss Harris, has set the terms of this contest. From dog whistle to megaphone, racism and the rejection of universal human rights also played a central role in the coalition that gathered behind Trump. Republican politicians since the days of the civil rights movement have had to use dog whistles and coded language to speak to the racism latent in American society. Trump used the megaphone and showed that he could get away with it. Long before he became a presidential candidate, he had made his mark with statements that played on prejudice and racism, as when he in 1989 entered a full-page ad in the New York Times demanding that the so-called Central Park Five be executed. Even after the real perpetrator was caught, Trump maintained the demand that the 5 black men were guilty and should be killed. For several years, he was also a leading spokesman for the claim that Barack Hussein Obama, Trump always emphasized his middle name, was born in Kenya and therefore could not be an American president. His increasingly overt racism sparked an enormous enthusiasm on the far right wing, and when Black Lives Matter filled the streets after the police murder of George Floyd, Trump, I think, isn't that debated still?
I think
Was the
Chauvin was
verdict on that?
convicted for murder of it, even though you have the double autopsy reports. The fentanyl probably didn't help, but at least officially there's been a conviction for murder.
Okay.
Maybe the chat can correct me. I'll look
Trump
this up.
emerged as the leader the wing needed. Throughout the summer of 2020, he cheered them on as they attacked anti-racist protesters several places with police help, and in some cases with the assistance of private militia groups. He defended, among others, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who shot 3 people, 2 of them to death, in what Trump claimed was a self... What do you mean claimed? He was acquitted. I mean, if you're gonna, go off of the verdict here, you got to go on the verdict here.
Yeah, no, that was self-defense.
And repeatedly portrayed the protesters as Antifa or as anarchist agitators, rebels, and looters, which all of them were, as far as I'm aware.
Yep,
right?
I remember faulty reporting at the time when that came out. There
I might
been some
misremember from watching the trial, but I'm pretty sure.
No, he was acquitted. He got out of that one.
I'm thinking of the people he shot. I mean, they went quite deep into like who they were as well during the trial.
They were all Antifa, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Maybe I could look
now,
that
of course, this one might be wrong on like he might like one of them might be a looter and the other might not be, right? So you can give him this one. But I really don't like that you're sort of using the official court stamp here and then like refraining from doing it here. That's a red flag. Defense Minister Mark Esper later said that Trump at one point asked why they could not just shoot with sharp weapons at the protesters, and which is a very Trump thing to say. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but it's like, why don't you just shoot them? It's a very Trump thing to say. Not necessarily because I can hear him asking it sort of so matter of factly, like he's genuinely interested.
Yeah, it would be fun to be a fly on the wall. I wish there was some tapes where you could actually hear some of these quotes.
And where previous initiatives such as the Unite the Right demonstration in Charlottesville failed to unite the right, Trump succeeded in gathering everything from Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, Boogaloo Boys, neo-Nazis, and paramilitary groups with conservative, wealthy suburban voters. A key feature of fascism is the active use of conspiracy theories. They're important for several reasons. They point out scapegoats against which it can be mobilized, and they open up a space where rationality and argumentation have no place. Trump quickly learned to build on ideas that were already in circulation and make them his own. The ideas that motivated the mob that would stop the theft of the election on January 6, 2021, and that stormed Congress are an obvious example. It was not the work of one man, but a synthesis of the work of many. One of the main ingredients in this synthesis was the QAnon conspiracy theory, which originated on the sites 4chan and 8chan, but was actively spread by Trump himself, more than 250 Twitter messages. The core of this was the same as in the classical anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, which for centuries have claimed that the Jews take Christian children and kill them in order to drink their blood. I'm not quite sure, but I thought Q lore was deeper than that. I think that was just a Pizzagate thing, wasn't it? But I'm
No,
not
he
a big
just
on
says it's
Q.
like he's trying just to associate these two things
Yeah.
with each other. But I don't think the poisoning the wells and the blood libel is Q canon. As far it's a little bit different.
Famous conspiracy theorist Francisco Franco. Yes. Trump himself claimed that he did not. Well, that's the thing, though. I didn't want to say it before because we're not done with the article, but I feel like cherry picking isn't the right word. But he's like taking the idea of fascism and then he's picking out like individual vectors that make up a political sort of ideology or movement. And he's saying that, oh, because a couple of these vectors match or one vector matches, that's fascism. In an article, by the way, where he said that he wouldn't really comment on whether or not Trump is a fascist.
He's doing quite a lot of that. I mean, but yeah, conspiracy. It's not unusual as it's sort of as a part of a political.
It's not
formula to
unusual. He's
have,
right that in MAGA and in sort of everything that he's right in everything he's saying here, right? But it's just that's one vector, right?
I mean, yeah, it's not that unusual. I think generally as sort of political formula to employ certain conspiracy theories, and I'm using the term as sort of conspiracy as sort of you're talking about the hidden hand stuff, usually stuff that's hard to verify, where it's kind of an implied coalition.
I mean, if you ask a hardline
forces.
commie, it's always going to be the hidden hand is just someone else, right?
Yeah. I mean, they will have it too. Most political regimes are going to employ some type of conspiracy that's really to sort of maintain a good friend-enemy distinction, in-group, out-group. I think the interesting part of MAGA and Q-tardism is that it's so unprincipled. It's just like every conspiracy about everything at the same time. It like some of them doesn't even make any sense. It's not like a clear sort of. Yeah, I don't even understand who the out-group is. They have this joke about it's like they, them. Who is they when like Candace Owens talking about like they're killing our children, or like, okay, who's they exactly? And that's sort of the problem, I think, where Trump is a little bit different, is that it's not principled.
Yeah. Nordan ask good questions. Are Democrats who think the Trump assassination was faked fascists as well? Trump himself,
I mean, at least it has the same that same
it's
formula.
The same ring, right? Yeah,
kind of using it, but I don't know if I don't know if that's canon among the Democrats politicians. I know that you have like the blue on
to be fair,
social media.
I mean, at this point, we would just get into sort of like imagine if the situation was reversed isms, which we all know how that goes. Trump himself claimed that he did not know what the theory was while describing those who believed in the theory as, quote, people who love our country, and used a jacket mark that showed his support for the mindset. In October 2020, about half of all Republican voters agreed with QAnon's core ideas. What is QAnon's core ideas? I have no idea. Do you know?
Pizzagate would be one of them, which sort of dropped into the Epstein stuff, I guess. Dominion voter machine, like fraud, the satanic Democratic elite. I don't know how far you go with that. We talk about like eating kids, for example. They eating kids inside the White House. Let me think. I'll think of a few more.
Yeah,
at least off the top of my head.
There's been a lot of talk of Q, and I just realized I've never sort of sat down and been like, I wonder what the core tenets of Q is, because it's so all over the place in my mind.
Well, it is like they believe that, like, it is usually some kind of pro-Trump versus the deep state stuff, right?
Yeah, but there's also weird posting about, like, the lights are back on in the cigarettes in Egypt, right? Like the lightning capture devices on the top of the pyramids are back on, and the return is here. Another important ingredient was libertarianism and the neo-reactionary Zeitgeist, which until Trump was elected recommended the rich to retreat to libertarian free states or their own island communities, like Curtis Yarvin or Peter Thiel. Trump's victory in 2016 gave them hope that the United States could be saved from socialism. And under the blogger named Mencius Moldbug, Yarvin had in 2008 concluded that the right should become monarchists, and that the state should be run as a profit-maximizing company, where the largest contributors were allowed to decide the most. Now, importantly, Yarvin, and we'll see if he's read his Yarvin, if he's going to go deeper into this. I mean, this is within the sort of patchwork framework, meaning that the state here is not the United States, but the individual states, right? That's how I understand it. Anyway, which in Yarvin's view, and I believe in the way I understand it, would bring in more in line with the original founding fathers' view of, their aristocratic democracy. But that's beside the point. It was in line with how Trump ruled the United States as a family business where the patriarch at the top decided everything. Since then, Yarvin, Thiel, and think tanks such as the Heritage Foundation have designed more operational programs for a new presidential term, where the plan is to reset the entire American community and replace the federal state with a patchwork of small dictatorships run as far. Yeah, okay, so you got the idea, dude. It's fine. Well, fine. It's going to be a huge upset of the entire federal system if Yarvin gets to do it. Of course, it's radical, but I wouldn't call it fascist, right?
I think, yeah, at least in their view, it's.
I don't
if you're
mean to be
going
running
full-
apologetics for everything here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to. It's so easy when you read stuff from people on this side of the pond to just get sort of like someone wrote like this is like the greatest hits of all accusations against Trump, right? And I'm just trying to bring some nuance here.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the interesting part about Yarvin, his ideas are generally hugely unpopular, I think, with most of the American public if you try and just present the monarch idea in general. So Trump is like the only shot to do it. Like you're putting all your eggs, but Trump is retarded.
Well,
that's not the other half of the problem.
Thing, monarchy is stupid until you get a really cool guy. The problem is that Trump
that's
kind of looks like a really cool guy.
The problem is that the only guy that gives you a shot at doing that is really it's just really unprincipled and stupid.
The rocket that we're riding isn't very good. Yeah. The most obvious example is the over 900-page Project 2025 document, which was designed by a number of prominent MAGA figures associated with the Heritage Foundation. A rather clear vision emerges, the dream of a post-democratic, patriarchal, and racist social order in which tens of thousands of migrants are deported, unions are crushed, women are disenfranchised, and power is gathered in a few hands. I'm not sure what... I haven't read Project 2025, I'm sorry.
I'm not reading that shit, dog. Like 900 pages. I'll just leave that one be. Trump doesn't want to read it either, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Two of the last books written on this subject are both hesitant in their conclusions. Historian Federico Finkelstein calls Trump a wannabe fascist in his book of the same title, and justifies it by stating that he only managed to establish what he calls 3 out of 4 fascist pillars: xenophobia, violence, and propaganda. Had the coup attempt succeeded, he would have fulfilled the 4th criterion as well. He would have collected all the Infinity Stones to create fascism. The Norwegian Civita advisor and author Jan Arild Snoen has, in his book Trump and Fascism, so far agreed with Finkelstein's main conclusion that Trump is moving towards fascism and that there is a danger that the endpoint may be fascism, but that he has too weak support in the military. He therefore calls Trump a proto-fascist, a man who shares many of the characteristics of fascism, but not yet its totalitarian ambitions. So then what's the point? I mean, other than the victory points from calling him a fascist, obviously. It's just so annoying because the thing is, if you just look at Trump for what he is, it's easy to find faults with him, right? It's so easy to criticize him. It's just that, as Nordanon says, he scares the hose, so we have to call him a fascist.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're trying to be principled. They could have just thrown the accusation out, but they're sort of, okay, well, we'll preface it with something. Okay, well, it doesn't really qualify.
He's not really a fascist.
I don't know.
You don't. Yeah.
And even if you establish that he is a fascist, do you get cookie then or something? I don't know. I don't know how this helps the discussion or moves anything forward at this point.
I guess it doesn't. So far, the series of revelations about Trump's ideological universe from some of those closest to him does not seem to have changed that conclusion. However, one can question the usefulness of an ideological analysis where the definition depends on whether the player succeeds or not, as Snoen does. Although intentions can sometimes be difficult to grasp, neither does it make it more difficult than necessary. Also, another thing is that if Bannon brought out sort of the most fascism in Trump, then what we're saying is that Trump is very influenced, or at least if he's going to act like he did in 2016, he's going to be very influenced by the people around him. And so you can just look at who's around him when he gets into office, and you can predict whether or not he's going to be more or less fascist than he was last time, right? But I guess that's why they're afraid of Project 2025, because they're thinking that maybe that's going to be his major influence.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know how much he has left in terms of political will for his own projects. He has reasons that he wants to win personally, but he's never been like ideologically committed as a person. So you have to just look at some of the people around him, and I think that's what's spooking the libs here. If they're looking
people
at
around him are more
the,
scary now than they were last time.
Vance and the Teal Network, I think, is what scares them the most.
Although intentions can sometimes be difficult to grasp, neither does it make it more difficult than necessary. Because if there's anything we know with clarity in the United States today, it's that Trump and Project 2010 will do to the United States and its democratic institutions. Again, you're putting a lot of stock on Trump being able to actually do this, but okay. In the book, the fight continues against racism and fascism from 1940 to today. I try to put Trump and the MAGA movement into a historical context. Oh, that's why this guy's written a book on fascism. I myself believe that the question of whether Trump as an individual is a fascist in the strictest sense of the word is of subordinate importance. So why bother then? Like, why do all of this rigmarole if that's not what you want? Like, why give yourself the cop out when you could just call him a fascist? Because obviously that's what you want to do. I don't get this. Many fascists throughout the ages have primarily been narcissists, kleptocrats, or bullies, or all at once. The movement behind them can still be fascist, and the society they create becomes fascist, or at least it goes in a fascist direction. One of the worrying things in the current situation is that the country that does the most to influence the outcome of the American election has itself evolved from an authoritarian one, postmodern dictatorship, to become a totalitarian government strongly influenced by fascist ideas. In recent years, Vladimir Putin's Russia has adopted ever stronger means of getting the population to internalize traditionalist and major Russian ideas. Much of it is taken from fascist philosophers such as Ivan Ilyin and Alexander Dugin through the school system and various political organizations. Now, you know more than me about this Lytic Path, but in your sort of contrarianism, I suppose, this doesn't seem to be going that well.
Well, I don't know. It's easy. You could always pick out these. I'm generally not a fan. This is like this kind of James Lindsayism, where you try to pick out these philosophers that you think are like the kings that are sort of moving these things, and you can find a lot of relevant stuff in Ivan Ilyin, especially in terms of like trying to understand the way Russia is developing, and Dugin I see he's more of like a popularizer, I think, in the West of Russian ideas in general. So I think it's generally a mistake to go look at philosophers when you look at these people. I'll just point back to the map that I showed last time as well, where you look at it's sort of like you have Orban in Hungary, Serbia with Vučić, Israel, Netanyahu, and United States with Trump as sort of a gang.
And they're all calling each other Nazis. Yeah,
in a sense, sharing kind of a similar leadership style in some senses, and not in that they're ideologically committed fascists, but they have.
I thought Dugin was like pan whateverist, which would not fit with the xenophobia.
Well, it is the kind of Eurasianist ideology that is putting out like the fourth political theory, or so that's one of his books, right, where he sort of presents
like the rise of Africa or something, right?
The sort of pan-Eurasian Asiatic Union. So I mean, I'm not read these books very closely. I just understand it on a surface level. But listening to Dugin rant, I don't know if I want to subject myself to that, honestly. I don't know what that Twitter user is who has that meme with Dugin, where it's just schizophrenic rabblings from an Asiatic ape man or something. It's exhausting. I've been trying to listen to him on Glenn Deason, and where he's just doing these interviews, and he just lets Dugin talk. he's just waffling for like 90 minutes consistently. He doesn't even interject or something. It's like this constant. Maybe I'll just do a stream, try to look at some of Dugin's ideas, because I still find it just really confusing, and I'm not sure how much I can actually get out of reading it. My point is generally that like you have these leaders that are forming this sort of loose coalition. And I mean, geopolitical theory basically says that, if you're supporting other leaders that have similar values to yourself, that is supposed to be kind of a strengthening thing, because you can always point to other countries that are successful or sustainable, at least, with people who have similar leadership styles. And it is like people like, say, like Netanyahu or Viktor Orban, or these people, like they're very, they like each other and they're able to cooperate because they have like this. They play loosely with truth. They play loosely with the law. They're sort of, they're not committed ideologues in a sense, like you would think about some older, fascist types from the last century, where they have more ideological views about the world and more kind of militaristic visions.
They would cooperate out of ideological alignment, right?
Yeah, it's not as much grand visions, but it's really more like their willingness to sort of bend rules to sort of show. I don't know. I learned this new kind of Hebrew word for it recently. I just.
Oh no, you completed your transformation into neocon, Luddick.
No, but it's something like chutzpah. Like it's not like chutzpah, but it's really the idea of just being willing to.
Oh, you never heard of chutzpah?
No, it's not chutzpah. It's another word. Like they're sort of afraid of being schmucks in a sense. If you play by the rules, right? If you follow the international rules-based order, the sort of system, you're a schmuck in a sense. Like it's like this sentiment that they have in Israel.
You're going to get played.
But, it's a bad thing if you're playing by the rules and you're trying to play nice and respecting the order. You have to always be in the gray zone between these things, and that's where you're seeing a lot of these characters, say like whether it's Putin or Orban or something. They're in sort of the gray zone, where like they will have a democracy, but it's like a flawed democracy. It doesn't really follow all the rules, and they kind of, if they can use the democratic model to benefit themselves, they'll do that. If they can use capitalism to benefit themselves, they use capitalism. If they can, be more authoritarian, then they use that. If they can use tradition.
What you're saying is based and particularist.
Well, it's
every decision is made in a vacuum. That's the way it's going to
go. Post truth, in a sense, you could sort of call it like post truth authoritarianism or something, and like kind of what separates them from what I think these kind of old school fascist types is really the economic side of it, because all of them are very interested in money. If you look at how much money Orban has or Putin or something, that they're quite a fan of having a lot of money and making a lot of money and sort of using it. Using that personally and just being, enriching yourself from that position and sort of using it in ways that's considered non-kosher. But at least that's kind of how I'm sort of finding Trump in this club, where he's probably the least sophisticated out of all of those three. But in a sense, I think he's, he finds more in common with them than he finds with say like the UN people or the EU or the WEFers. Yeah.
Nordanon says post-ideological authoritarianism, but that's just a dude.
Yeah.
That's nothing. That's just some guy, right? Calling the shots for no reason.
Well, yeah, it is. You could call it like a kleptocrat or something similar to that, depending on exactly how they conduct it.
That implies, greed or like a movement or a direction, right? But post-ideological just makes it like it's just some guy trying to survive, right? It's like you're playing Hearts of Iron and you're like slowly being like destroyed, and you're desperately trying to cling on to life.
But I think, but sort of the old school is that this comes from like a military background, like these people who do that. It's like whether it's like Franco or these types, it's it has like this hard military edge to it, but now it's a lot more mercantile in a sense. It's much more focused
on. Franco was much more ideological, right? I mean, it was a vision. It wasn't.
Yeah,
just nothing,
I think so, right? Too. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they're just dudes trying to make it in the cold and harsh world.
Just rising and grinding, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a part of it too. I feel like that is very integrated in, especially in the American version of this worldview, right? When you saw in the Madison Square Garden, like he had Grant Cardone as a guest speaker, And this is something I've always noticed.
that
I'm
fits.
just interested in seeing that confirmed. If you don't know who that is, he's like one of these
I know who it is. Yeah.
YouTube entrepreneurial real estate hustlers, where they talk about how you should make money from real estate deals, but they're actually just making money off you. Basically, it's sort of
they're just selling programs, right?
They're selling courses, right, or selling access to themselves. And Trump is kind of like that too. And he's very close with, the way that he thinks about government. It's very much like the same way these people run businesses. It's really all about just like selling access to him. It's on the surface it looks like he has like all these ideological visions, but in the end you're just kind of paying to see him.
Russian economist Vladislav, do we want to continue with this, or do you want to look at the?
Well, yeah, maybe you could just. What is the finishing line here? The question we should ask ourselves.
The question we should ask ourselves is: do we understand the scope of what this all means? Do we understand enough about fascism? Hang on, let me double check the translation here. I don't want to misquote him on this. Yeah, do we understand fascism enough, and what are we going to do what should we do to stop it if the time has come to, if it at the same time comes to power in the United States and Russia? Okay, so what are we going to do about it if it comes to power at the same time in the United States?
Okay, now I actually remember as I'm talking that this one guy that I follow, Vlad Wexler, he has this term for it. He calls it post-truth populism. That's the term that he's using for Trump.
Right.
And he basically says that like post-truth populism is not the same as fascism, and that the technocratic liberals have no tools to deal with it. Essentially, the way that it is now, like it's kind of like what is that, Foundation or something, like the mule, the guy who comes on with the musical instrument that just spellbounds everybody. Like they have no way of actually dealing with this effectively. And the only problem that Trump has is that he just kind of lacks discipline, in a sense, in the way that Netanyahu does not, or Viktor Orban does not. So they just keep drumming the hammer about fascism, and they keep thinking that like technocratic liberalism is mainstream the same way it was in the 90s, but it's kind of not. People are really losing interest in it. And there's going to be like this hardened base of liberals that you're going to see in the future that will be a lot more edgy. And I think you're seeing it with characters like let's say like Destiny or something. Like you're going to see more characters.
Well,
like
maybe
that
not Destiny.
No, I actually think he sort of is, because not only that they're going to be there kind of defending this kind of more technocratic liberal vision, but they're going to be doing
that's what you mean by hardened. Okay, yes,
aggressively.
Sure.
It's not going to be
not
this,
that he has steeled himself. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Well, yeah, but I guess there's been a big kind of difference, I think, in his kind of development as well. I've followed him for quite a while, so. I think like he's, weirdly enough, I think that he's sort of the model of where a lot of this technocratic stuff is going to go, that it's just going to be a lot more aggressive in the future, because they see that as sort of their,
I don't want to give away my wife, dude. I don't want that.
No, the personal kind of quirks aside.
Yeah, but the personal is political, Edik.
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
no, you have to give your wife
up. What was the thing? Did you watch the Muslim debate thing, where like the one liberal Muslim says that God doesn't belong in your bedroom or in the privacy of your own home, and my immediate thought is then what's the point of a religion? Like that's like having some sort of overarching judgmental force is that keeps people sort of on the same social norms is in many ways the technological point of a religion.
This is always the thing, but that cannot you can't serve two masters, as they say. So they'll basically allow you to keep some kind of toothless version of it.
Sure.
But he's also like the head of the left in Norway. What is his name again?
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't him who said it, because he was the Giga Chad liberal who said that.
But yeah,
he basically went house N-word and said that all the Muslims have to stop being backwards and regressives and have to open their eyes to the glory of Western liberalism and stop being racist. And a bunch of like Muslims got really mad at him for it, but they couldn't explain why, because if they explain why, they have to say the quiet part out loud. So
Yeah, and he's an example of that. I just forgot his name currently.
I think his name is Abid Raja.
Abid Raja, yeah, but he's also an example of that. Like these people are just you're going to see a lot more teeth and claws from these kind of technocratic liberal types in the future, where they will just be doing stuff like just going out to Muslims and just telling them they have to cut it the fuck out in order so that they can sort of continue to manage society the way that they already have. They will not be nice, I think, or I mean, most people don't feel like they have been, but they have not seen the technocratic wrath yet. It will be it will get progressively worse. But yeah, we've been going on for a while now. But I think
We've been on for quite a while. I think
finish off just looking at the electoral map. So I'm just going to move them here so I don't have too many tabs.
Nordanon says that Tony Blair will return with a vengeance. Let's see here.
Okay, so since I mean, next week, if we're coming back, I assume that the election will have been over already. And then the question is, how is it going to pan out? So yeah, you have there's like various factors for why it could go both ways. It seems like with the polling, it's still sort of 50-50, and there's some like different scenarios that you can play around with here. I mean, I looked at it today. The people are saying that Pennsylvania, whoever wins Pennsylvania wins the election, and the thinking behind that is that like with the American Rust Belts, that is the states up here, the blue states that typically, like in most elections, it's just been solid blue. It's only that Trump was able to flip Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Because they're sort of like old union sort of working class.
It's like old factory towns that have started to fall apart, and they usually vote Democrats. Trump was able to flip them in 2016. Then they flipped back to Biden in 2020, and the thinking is that they always vote the same, right? So if one of them flips, all of them flip. That's kind of the thinking. So whoever like gets Pennsylvania, because that's the biggest one, that's going to lead to that you get the rest of these. And you're seeing that if the Democrats, or if Kamala Harris gets these three, that's like the whiter battleground states, then it's basically at 270, and the election is over. But of course, there are the other states that are in play, like the Sun Belt states that are like the ones at the bottom here: North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. From the polling numbers, it looks like Nevada is the most likely to go blue, but it's also the smallest one and probably the most insignificant. So you could have, let's say, things like, even let's say Trump gets all of these, he still has to get at least one of the Rust Belt states, and if you get one of the Rust Belt states, then you get all of them. So I think in like Nate Silver's model, I think this is like what he says is the most likely scenario, that Trump takes all of the swing states, with the second most likely being something like this, that he gets the Sun Belt states, and the Democrats get
and eke him out by like a couple of seats, or
get the
Rust
Belt ones, and then they're eked out by the votes, getting to 270. So what I think is most in Trump's favor is really the betting markets, right? And people don't really know how to parse that, but it's not just poly market. People have been going to this sort of cope line that well, American citizens can't vote, or they can't spend money in poly market, so therefore it doesn't count. But you're seeing it across other betting markets as well, that they favor Trump quite heavily. And of course, you could run the other cope line that but this is just because the billionaires are boosting his numbers. But again, if you actually believe Kamala is going to win, then you're just leaving money on the table by not doing that. You're getting like really good odds. If she's at she was like 33 or something earlier today, but now she's going closer to 40. I mean, Polymarket has actually moved a lot since I opened the stream.
Yeah,
And Kamala is actually getting close to 40 now. So this looks a little bit scary, actually. I think that some people might lose a lot of money. But the thinking is that, if you actually believe Kamala is going to win, you think it's serious, then you can make a lot of money on that. And they're not doing that. And there's no lack of money in that camp politically. So you have to ask yourself the question if like the betting markets know something that this should just go back to 50-50 or maybe like in Kamala's favor if they're not putting the money in. So that's what I think is like the strongest case for why Trump is going to win. But let's see. I'm just going to get the other one here. That we have like early voting results, because early voting has been actually very active this year, and not just for Democrats but for Republicans as well, because they've been encouraging people to vote early, which was different from 2020, where Trump told Republicans that they should vote on election night, which I think in retrospect was really stupid. I mean, even if you're like a guy who's a sales guy, then I mean, what is like the first rule of sales? If you've seen Glenn Ross, always be closing, right?
Yeah.
You close the deal immediately, and what is early voting? It's like you close the deal immediately after the rally. You go vote. You've made the sale. Just do it. Don't wait 3 weeks, so you'll forget about it and change your mind or something. Do it on the day. So that's an advantage that Republicans are going to have this election, that they actually are encouraging early voting and mail-in voting. But what are we seeing here? If we look at the battleground states, and that's where a lot of this. If you remember, like the femoid complaints and the white women are killing their children and fucking the nation stuff is coming from. If you look at Pennsylvania here, and just to clarify, these are not actual votes. It's sort of the people who have voted early, if they're registered as Democrat, Republican, or Independent. It doesn't mean they have to vote for Republican.
The vote hasn't actually been cast yet.
No, the vote has been cast, but you don't know who they voted for.
Oh,
you just know that they're registered.
It hasn't been registered.
Right? You have to register in the United States as a Democrat, or Republican, or an Independent when you vote, right? And so 58% of the people registered as Democrats have voted early. That's we're looking at Pennsylvania here. But there's a big differential, between in early voting between, say, Democrats and Republicans here. They have an advantage here in Michigan, and they have an advantage in Wisconsin. Not so much in Arizona, actually. It tips very much in Republicans' favor by actually quite a large margin. So they're certainly voting early this election. And the same in Nevada, and the same Republicans have a slight edge in North Carolina and Georgia. But if you look at because they have like a filter here for gender, you're looking at like the gender differential is that there's like almost in all of these swing states, there's kind of an overweight of women by at least 10%. So Nevada, it's actually less in Nevada. In Nevada and Arizona, it's a smaller differential between men and women. But if you look at the Rust Belt swing states, there's almost like 10% more women who's registered. And this isn't just in early voting either. If you look at like total registered to vote, they seem to have an overweight, sort of being more weighted towards women in general. The same thing with North Carolina and Georgia, although they have better numbers for Republicans. So my view, just looking at the early voting here, is that these Rust Belt states, if these three go blue, then the Democrats win the election. And I've just been watching this kind of rate steadily go up, and that's why I believe just numerically, I think they're more likely. That's kind of what I think is the most likely outcome, that these 3 states are going to go blue, and that'll be it.
But isn't there a thing where Democrats generally, overperform in mail-ins?
Yeah, they certainly are registered more in mail-ins here as well. But it's just a sort of like you're seeing in other places, is that they're actually, you are seeing Republicans showing up in these in these other states. It's just that it's the differential, especially in Pennsylvania, that's considered like the key state to
The big
win or
one,
not win.
yeah.
That's actually a really big differential in terms of like men not showing up. So I mean, the thing that can happen is that there's many, people can flip their votes even though they're registered. You have independents, especially like say in Wisconsin and some of these other, sorry, it's unknown. This is not the gender unknown. It's not that many trans people, but you're seeing in Wisconsin, there's like 41% registered independent, 10% in Pennsylvania. So there's always the kind of, you don't know where these votes are going to go. But in Pennsylvania, the margin is already so big. So if this is an indicator, it's kind of not good news, I think, for Trump.
Right. Yeah.
Which is that sort of like my, at least just based on looking at these data, that I think it's more likely that the Dems are going to pull it off by getting the Rust Belt. In this case, with Trump getting most of the Sun Belt. Just the kind of numeric and demographic case. My vibes-based analysis is really the as soon as Trump brought on RFK Jr., which was sort of seen as like, this is a smart thing to do electorally because he has like a certain segment of voters that overlap with Trump's, and so he's not going to steal votes from Trump, and you get a stronger coalition that way. But like my vibes-based analysis is that basically by bringing in RFK Jr., you're making the party basically like the tinfoil hats party versus the serious hat party. And my gut feeling is always that if you make your party just pure tinfoil, that the serious hats are going to edge them out, simply because there's going to be enough people that are turned off by it. I don't know if you have a similar perspective, but that's just like my vibes-based analysis for why I think Dems are going to win.
That's a bit of a, yeah. I can see where you're coming from. I'm just like, yeah, it's vibes. I'm not sure how much stock I put in the pull of someone like RFK Jr. really, right? The thing is, with my feeds being basically mainstream media sites, right, and Twitter, I feel like nothing I'm reading is true. Like, it's all just 2 different echo chambers who are all just showing me bullshit. So it's very hard for me to get a good read on this.
No, it's very up in the air. There's no kind of clear predictions.
What I will say is that I'll be less surprised if Trump loses this time than I was last time. So
yeah, I mean that's yeah.
But I do still think there's still quite a good chance. Like I still think Trump might win this. It's very possible.
This is no guarantee.
I would loathe the sort of theater kid regime that would reside over America if Kamala wins. So, vote Trump, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But yeah, at least this is my this is the prediction I'm going to give as a sort of closing. What do you say? Like a closing remark on the election, right. And then we'll see. Yeah. We'll be on the other side next week.
Yeah, we'll have all the analysis ready and go for you guys. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, everyone, for listening. In the description down below is a link to Luddic Path's new sort of, what do you call it? Just whatever channel.
And I'm really just doing more of a commentary channel, where there's like stuff that I don't have time for. To put on the Longhouse, I feel like, or it's just thing that's a little bit off-brand, or more polemic stuff.
Check that out. I think for those of you who have sort of butted heads with him on a lot of the stuff with Russia over the past, I guess, year, I think the latest video about, what's it called?
I did a video about Yuri Besmanov and
Yeah.
active measures,
Active
which I thought is a
measures.
sort of compilation of like various observations and documentaries. I think it's an interesting thing to watch. At least you might be exposed to some things that you're not. You haven't
I
seen
think
before.
it's a good sort of summary of a lot of your thoughts on that. Not everything, of course, but it's sort of that sort of mindset. Luddick's whatever channel named LPTV. I think it's time for my microphone to retire. Might have to look for a new one. So you can also check the Discord in the description down below. If you are Nordic, you can hang out with me, some other people in the sort of community, broader community. I know there's a book club going if you're interested in that, things like that. So check out that link in the description down below. And I think that's it. We've been running half an hour more than we should, so it's time that we get out of here. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.